Hi, welcome back. I'm Scott Danner with Freedom Street Partners. And today I was looking over a list of things that in my industry as a financial advisor, what are some things you need to be focused on going into the end of the year and the beginning of next? And I got so bored with looking at some of the things like tax harvesting and gifting and all the things you know that you need to be doing this time of year that we tell you and you read about. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because you know you can call people like us or your advisor and you could talk to them about that kind of stuff. What I want to talk to you about are the things that are going to make you most successful for year end. What did you put down on paper last year? What are the things that you're thinking about right now that really made this year a success? What are the moments that stood out? What were the family successes? Did you take an amazing vacation? Did you have an experience that everybody really is going to remember for the rest of their lives? What made this year successful? And then moving forward, what makes next year more of a success to you? What are the things you're thinking about to make yourself more successful moving into the following year? I like to do a couple of things, and so I'm going to give you three things. We always want to give you a couple of ideas to take home and think about and really build on. And for this coming year, the first thing you want to do is you want to separate. If you want to come up with the most important things for the following year, you want to separate from the noise and the chaos and the fun and the basketball games, and the football games, the baseball and soccer, and you got to sit down and separate. And when you separate, find somewhere peaceful. Find somewhere that you feel at home, but not home. Because if you're home, all those things are going to cloud your ability to truly think about what's going to be successful moving into next year. Number two is you want to write it down. So this is a really cool exercise, and most people, believe it or not, are not doing this. We know the research, and we know that when you write down your goals and you write down what you want to accomplish, you are so much more successful. Everyone knows it. Hardly anybody does it. Several years ago, I hired an outside business coach from California who became a great friend of mine. And the very first thing he made me do, this was at a time where my business had hit a new level, and I was really, really excited, but I felt like I needed to just take it to the next level. And we wrote down what I saw myself doing in 5 years. And, I wrote the shallow things like I wanted a pool for my family and, I wanted stuff. And there was also a lot of things I wanted to accomplish, a lot of people I wanted to help, a lot of things that were on that list that, believe it or not, when I look back, I'm amazed at how many things I accomplished on that list. So each year, what I like to do is when I separate, I write down a list of the things that I want to see happen next year. And here's a couple of themes. What are some things you want to do with your family? Are there special vacations you want to do? Is there a hike you want to take? Is there a conversation with your son or daughter you need to have this year? What is most important with your family this year? What about work? Work is what you do every day. What makes work and life go together? What makes work more fun, more fulfilling? How are you going to stand out in the crowd and make something out of what you're doing that's 10 times better than maybe what you even thought you could do? How does work change? Do you change jobs? Is there a new opportunity you're eyeing? Are you going to bet on yourself this year? What are the things you want to accomplish? Look at your relationships. So friendships. A couple years ago, I realized a good buddy of mine had moved down to New Orleans, and it had been 8 years and I had never visited him. One of the things I had written down that year was I was going to make that an effort. Come January 1, the first thing I did was book a flight, and by the end of January, I was down there. Little things like that, writing it down, trigger you to make the change that you need to make, so that at the end of the year, when you're sitting at your seat like I am right now, you're saying, this is what made this year successful, and these are the checklist items that I feel so fulfilled about doing. The last thing I want to talk about is what do you do once you've actually done this? You've separated, you have written it down, you've talked about family, you've talked about work, maybe even added something like spirituality. We've lost a book. A book just fell in the back. It's called Intentional Leadership by John Maxwell. I think it's a message right here for us to actually talk a little bit about that, but I'm not going to. Ultimately, the last thing you have to do is you have to share it. So we've had a couple of conversations here in this forum, in this community, about sharing. And when you talk about millennials and Gen X and spouses, a lot of us do this really crazy thing where we have a dream or we have a vision, we don't write it down, and we don't share it with anybody. Well, the first place I'd love you to share it is right here in this community. Tell us what the big thing you want to accomplish in 2018. Maybe it's the mundane, regular, everyday thing. Maybe your goal for 2018, 2019, 2020, whatever the year it is, you're looking at it and you're saying, I'm going to be present. I'm going to do less. I don't know, that might be your goal this year. But you need to share it with someone. You need to share it with the people you love. If you and your spouse aren't on the same page, but you're so frustrated come year end that you didn't accomplish what you needed to accomplish, but nobody else knew about it, it's not going to go very far. So I'd encourage you to share it. I'd encourage you to write it down. And I'd certainly encourage you to separate. And I'd really think about a full day. Think of separating for a full day. And I know there's a lot of moms out there right now that are saying, oh, it's easy for you to say, Scott, because you don't have to do all the things I have to do. And I appreciate that. I'm not going to challenge that. I'm just going to challenge you to think a little differently and take that day to figure out what makes next year great. I'm Scott Danner with Freedom Street Partners. I'm very excited to have you in our forum, and I look forward to the next time we can share this conversation. Thanks for joining me.